Okay, we're going to go ahead and get going here. I'm not going to bother with the microphone. Everybody can hear me okay in the back? So I figured as much. So, first of all, I want to introduce myself. My name's Tim Myers. Work for Cisco Systems. Been there a little over 16 years now. Working as a security CSE. My partner in crime over here is Jason Dell with Network Solutions, a partner that I've worked with for many, many years. And I always have to put my plug in for NSI, man. It's a good family, good trustworthy business to do business with. So by all means, I would put my name all over them as a company. So, but what we're going to do today is we're going to talk a little bit about ransomware. Anybody in here had any ransomware issues coming into this conversation? Ooh, okay.
We're going to admit
to? There was a day when people won't, but now there's so many people. Oh, yeah. So, but so anyway, we're going to talk about it. I promise we won't beat you up on technical detail on Cisco products, stuff like that. It's more about ransomware, what technologies fit, how to address the overall kill chain. So just going real quick, a 101 on ransomware, how it works, that kind of thing. Then we'll get into the talking about breaking the ransomware kill chain. There is no point product that's going to do this to protect you. So you have to, the fact that there's a kill chain process that gives you the opportunity to catch them in multiple stages of the chain. Then I'll go into the defense overview, some of the technologies that play in the different sections of the kill chain, and then I'll just show you at a high level what products that we have that will fulfill that need for you. Okay, and then the what to do, where to start. Okay. A lot of people are like, oh, this is overwhelming. Look at all of this. There's so much of it. How do I get started? Okay, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So on the ransomware 101, the problem that we have obviously is that they come in, they take over your machine, and they've got you, right? These bad guys figured out a few years ago how to monetize hacking. I don't know if you've ever seen an industrialization of hacking presentation, but they figured out how to monetize it, and it's all basic business, supply and demand. Let's say I'm a bad guy, and if I could get 50 credit card numbers, boy, I could really do some fun stuff that I know how to do, right? Fraudulent stuff, but I don't know how to get those numbers. So I can go to a website and order them off a menu, just like you can order food to go. Okay, hence the supply and demand, and now the hacking industry is estimated to be as high as $1 trillion black market industry. $1 trillion. Somewhere between half and $1 trillion is what they're estimating. You can't hardly tell because it's so underground, right? But so obviously what they do, they take over your machine, they encrypt it, and then they want you, think about it, you have to negotiate directly with the bad guy. It's a very, very unique situation for everybody. And I've listed a few of the businesses, and not just K-12 and everything, but think about the impact to how you guys do your job and what it would do if suddenly all of your servers and workstations started freezing up and you couldn't get access to it. Okay, how that would impact your day-to-day business. You see some of it's very major. I don't know about you, but I'm going to take my glasses off. I can't see up close. But in hospitals, you're in the middle of care. In the world of IoT, there's so many devices on the network now that get involved in everything that we do, whether in our personal lives or in professional lives. Now I'm too blind with them all, so I guess I wouldn't know. And just for like you guys in the school system, can you imagine if not only the students but even your own personal information was taken? Okay, not being able to access any of your servers, what that would be, and it can be days, if not weeks, before you're back up and going. What would that do to your daily life? Okay, so that's why it's so powerful, and they were so easily could monetize it. Okay.
So don't think that these are just focusing on industry, healthcare, financial institutions. I have a senior in high school, so imagine if the system that held the grades was encrypted in such a way that you couldn't access it without paying a ransom. How detrimental that would be to these students who are planning to go to college, whoever's holding it for ransom saying you can't have this data until you pay it for it. So, and they're not always astronomical costs either. They might just say, well, it's going to be $2,000 to $5,000, something that certainly most school systems could sense of urgency is high enough to be justified to try it.
So here's just some quick numbers on it. As you can see, like, 209 million just in the first quarter of this year. This is ransomware only numbers here, okay? And so this year, 2016, is targeted to be $1 billion year for the bad guys. Okay? Now, just to make you feel really comfortable, even if you pay, about 42% of the time they don't give you your data back. Think about that. And they've already breached you. Do you think they haven't taken that data, sold it elsewhere? Okay, so you have to understand you're dealing with bad guys. And I do have one quick story. I don't want to call it funny because these poor people, but there was a business that got breached with ransomware. And they paid. Okay? A month later, they came back and hit them again. They said, wait a minute, we're a repeat customer. Don't we get some kind of a discount? And believe it or not, these bad guys will negotiate with you. I was talking to a guy just last week that his PC got hit, and he was going to have to pay $400. He negotiated him down to $250 or something like that, and then paid. Okay, so it's think about that. You're interacting directly with these bad guys. Yeah. Okay, so the market is there, and also you'll notice that if you look at about any virus slide, ransomware slide, or whatever, you'll notice just the explosion in the last few years. Okay, and one thing that really helped them was Bitcoin became available. Now you have pretty much an anonymous way to transfer funds. Okay, so that was really the birth of ransomware at that point. Okay, but you can see, I'm sure you see a lot of familiar names that you've seen in the news there. Okay, I'm not going to pound on them. So now, the way it works, the most common, and this is why we always tell you that whenever you're setting up a security solution, you have to look at it from an architectural standpoint. You have to look at every attack vector. Okay, how long have we been doing business via email and browsing websites? A long time, right? You know what the two most popular attack vectors still today are? Right there, you're looking at them. Okay, and the funny part is, it's also the least amount of security applied by a lot of customers. Okay, it's email. Okay, so, but the way it works, take email first, comes in with a malicious attachment. They click on it, and boom, what's it do? It dumps the payload onto the machine. The machine then starts communicating with a command and control server out on the internet, and it will send it the encryption keys that it needs, and whoop, it encrypts your files, and now you no longer have access. Now, you'll notice there was multiple stages to what I just said. That's why I said the kill chain, right? There's multiple things that go on there. Now, when we talk about a web-based infection, there's two of them. First of all, it could be an email with a web link in it, okay? And then, of course, they can make it. I don't know if you've ever seen some of the examples. You stop and think about how much data we put out on Facebook and whatever. Everybody knows it's going to be very easy to go out and get a lot of detail. Oh, you work here, and here's your hobbies or whatever, and you can customize an email to look exactly like it came from somebody at work. It's just too easy and quick. And you guys ever get the test where if you click on the link, it comes up, it's your own company testing you? Cisco does that all the time. Okay? I mean, I see them like, I can point them out to my wife at this point. I said, look at this, man. This is a phishing. Look at it. If I click on that, bam, they have me, right? So another is on when you're browsing the web. Sadly, you can go to a website and there's an advertisement. You don't even touch it. That's malvertising. It's downloading the payload as soon as you go to that website. Okay? And then it's the same thing. Drops off the payload. Payload starts reaching out. See how critical it is to be able to correlate these activities that I've now brought this file onto my machine, and then eventually it starts reaching out to the command and control server. You need a solution that can correlate that kind of activity to be able to detect when they're compromised. Okay?
And keep in mind that these are often focused threats. They're focused on a particular company. You know, they'll do their research to find out, well, what way can we trick them? What's the best way of doing particularly spear fishing? It's not, they're not just chumming the water to see what bites out there. They're focusing on specific companies to hit them hard.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because these are, like he said, they're attacking the user. You know why? Because I don't care how much perimeter security you put out there. If they tell you they're going to block everything there, I'm sorry, they're just being dishonest with you. There's no way you can stop them with everything there. Okay. The weakest link in any security solution is the user to click on a link. It's just that easy because they can make it look perfect. Okay. So that's very targeted. But you also have ransomwares like SamSam was one that they breach in and get into a server, and then from there they use that as a launching pad to laterally scatter across all other servers and everything. So that one was a pretty vicious one. Okay, so all kinds of different flavors out there. So
focused attacks are also more difficult to detect. Or the other ones are often caught early. Sometimes they're crafted specifically.
Yes.
You have to look at behavior or some other.
All right, so I don't want to beat on this. The point I want to make on this is you can see most of them do callbacks to command and control servers. So that's why I mentioned earlier, you have to have a solution that's very good at detecting and correlating these events. But more importantly, the majority of them use DNS. Did you know that? They utilize DNS. Somewhere in the kill chain, they either in the beginning or when they're starting to do the callback, there's DNS involved there. So if you don't have a solution that focuses on the threats at the DNS layer, you're really missing an opportunity to catch them up front. Okay? And I'll talk more about that. All right, breaking the kill chain. We talked about kill chain. We talked about how we more or less can break it into multiple stages there. Okay? And what this more or less shows you is within each stage of the kill chain, the different technologies that are involved to try to protect you there. It can be a little overwhelming when you're looking at it, right? But it goes to show you that it can't be a point product, okay? It has to be a solution, an architecture that is working together that actually shares not only contextual information, but threat information, be able to correlate activities, okay? Downloading a file is not a bad activity. Reaching out to a command and control, reaching out to a website is not a bad activity. You correlate them, it could be. You see what I'm saying? So you have to have a solution that will be able to do that. Now that's about as simple as examples I can use as far as correlation, but that you get the idea. So, like for example, when you're in the recon stage, that's where your next generation firewalls and your intrusion prevention will play. In the next stage, you can see where threat intelligence. You have to be able to get that threat intelligence not just from your environment. You have to be able to see what's going on in the rest of the world, and that's the way you're able to determine a lot of these malicious sites. Is that I not only need to be able to see who's going to this particular site, but now if I can see all around the globe who's going to that site, I can now correlate and determine that's a malicious site. That's a command and control server at that location. Bam, you can now take action on that. Does that make sense? The most important piece of all of this is that threat intelligence. To be able to take information globally, not just from your customer, not from you, but everybody, every customer around the globe. Think about the power of that now, how you can now take that, all right? Then you get into the launch stage. That's where you get into the DNS security, like I was telling you about, okay? Eventually, they have to resolve to an IP address. Then your email, web, and IPS pretty much plays all across. But then you get into the exploit. That's where you get into your network level anti-malware. Okay? If this host is infected, I don't want, if they're on my network, I can be able to block them from sending that to anybody else on my network. Okay? Then the next stage is the install. This is where they try to actually put the payload on the endpoint, on the PC or whatever. That's where your anti-malware on the endpoint comes into play. Okay? Then you keep going across. Now look, here we are on the callback. That's where that DNS security comes back into play as well. Okay, and you can see the rest. And then at the very end is the persist. These guys get in, and they're not going to go in there and say, hey, we're in. They're going to sit there and do some bad things, well, they can't, okay? You've read about these breaches last months, if not years, okay? So you need to be able to look at the flow analytics that's going on in your network. It's amazing the power of being able to take the activity, the flow on your network day to day, and put that into a GUI that you can actually understand, because then you can see anomalies. Suddenly this host here, out of nowhere, starts dumping gigabytes of information out to the internet. That's going to trigger if I'm looking at my flows. Okay, see what I'm saying? So,
One more thing,
oh, I'm sorry.
Make a quick comment on
you
that
bet,
quick.
you bet.
So, threat intelligence, just something quick to say on that. Effective and reputable threat intelligence. Several vendors say they have threat intelligence. But it's important to do your research to make sure that what's their global footprint? How much visibility do they have to worldwide threats? As well, this whole picture illustrates two things. How security components work as a security system, and it also illustrates defense in depth. Because just having next generation IPS isn't going to cover everything. And no one component's going to be 100% effective at mitigating threats. They need to work together and be in layers so that if something is missed by one, the next layer's going to catch it.
Yep, and one step further is, imagine if one vendor, another vendor, another vendor, another vendor, do you think they're going to exchange that information?
That's the well.
Okay? You see what I'm saying? That's why Cisco really takes the architectural approach. Okay? And so now, I will Ciscoize this a little bit. Okay? Like I said, I won't go into depth on all the products, but I want you to be able to see in all of those different buckets that you just saw. A lot of people don't realize Cisco actually has a solution that goes across the entire attack continuum. We have solutions that focus on the before the attack, during the attack, and after the attack. Okay? We're the only vendor that can go across the entire attack continuum. Okay? So, in the first thing is the quick win, is the cloud part piece of it. And first of all, like he was talking about, the intelligence. Our security intelligence is called Talos. Okay? You can Google it and see what it stands for. You'll get why they called it that. But that is, it was Cisco's SIO with SourceFire's vulnerability research team. Now it's over 600 of the scariest security guys you'll ever meet in your life. Okay, these guys are crazy smart, and they take feeds from every sensor that we have, every endpoint running endpoint protection, everything around the globe funnels into Talos. All of the security intelligence is up in that cloud. You don't have to employ 15 security experts. The intelligence is in the cloud. To give you an example of the amount of data that they take in to be able to correlate, to detect threats, we just in malware alone, we do over 1 million samples a day. The other clouds, like you said, of our competitors, they measure them into tens of thousands, 20,000, whatever. We do over 1 million a day. We do more web blocks than Google does searches in a day. Stop and think about that. More web blocks. And it's like 2 times. It's substantially more. That's how big the intelligence is up there in that cloud. That is the differentiator for us that nobody can even come close to. Okay? Now, then when you get into when we're talking about the quick win as a cloud, you'll notice there's called Umbrella. You guys probably know it as OpenDNS. You guys, okay? It's now called Cisco Umbrella. That right there, you're talking about something that is quick and easy to deploy. We just flipped Cisco globally over to Cisco Umbrella in 30 minutes. So now, every time we click on a website at Cisco, on or off network, we're protected. OpenDNS, when they perform, they have more or less their own version of Talos. They were the ones that took sensors from all over the globe and looked at everybody that's going to that particular website, and they're the ones that are able to determine this is a site with a command and control server. That information now feeds into Talos. Okay? So Unbelievable, very quick and easy. It's probably the first incident response tool to get deployed because it's so quick. Boom, okay? All right, then also is the email security. You can do it on-prem or cloud email. And then the third one is AMP with ThreatGrid. AMP is our advanced malware protection. We do it on network-based and we do it endpoint-based, okay? ThreatGrid is this is the ThreatGrid, TG. That's our sandboxing technology that we have that is second to none because we have a technology that we're able to do it on the outside in where they can't determine that they are in a sandbox, and that's very powerful. Most of them can trip that up and determine they're in a sandbox and it won't execute. But the quick wins are right there. You can see even back to, like I mentioned earlier, back when it comes to the callback to the command and control server, that's where Umbrella has a second chance to catch it. So if it doesn't know about it, you're the unlucky one that's in the first one to maybe get this or they haven't seen it yet. Yeah, you have a second chance for OpenDNS to catch it before now keep in mind, this is before the connection is ever established. Okay, so it's not like it comes into your network and then you determine it. OpenDNS that's why they call it Umbrella. It's this umbrella over your entire security portfolio that blocks a lot of bad things before it ever touches your network. Okay, pretty powerful. It's all in the cloud, never comes to your location level. Okay, then this next step would be the web defense. There is where we have just like the email, we have an on-prem appliance, or you could do cloud web security or a combination thereof. And as this moves forward, you're going to see the best of Cisco Umbrella and our cloud web security merge into a single product to make them one really super powerful combination, okay? And then lastly is the rapid defense. This is where it really starts showing the power of a Cisco solution, and this is the integrations, all right? Now, what I'll start out is FTD, that's Firepower Threat Defense. Anybody familiar with SourceFire in the days past? Okay, all right, so this is Firepower Services consolidated with our ASA firewall code, so we can run all of that in a unified image on our firewalls. So what does that give you? Think about this. Your perimeter firewall can now, we all know ASA's been around for, what, 16, 17 years, whatever. Very, very well industry leading firewall. Now it can do next generation IPS. And I mean true next generation IPS. I encourage you to follow up with Network Solutions and have them give you a presentation about our next generation firewall in the Firepower Services. It's an unbelievable story that nobody can touch, okay? But what it gives you is not only the next generation IPS, you get at the application visibility and control where I can go in and control sub-applications from within Facebook, let's say. You get advanced malware protection right there on your perimeter firewall, that's network level. And then you get URL filtering, all right there on the perimeter. So yes, do you still need to harden your perimeter? Absolutely, you need to harden your perimeter, okay? And then it integrates with ICE, our Identity Services Engine. That is our, you can look at it as our network access control. We can set access policy according to contextual information. If you join your network with your iPad, I'm probably going to give you different privileges than if you joined with your corporate PC. Okay, depending on location, all that stuff. So ICE is really the heart of it all because it controls the access on and off your network. Okay, if, for example, FTD in our the Firepower Services detects a threat, detects that an endpoint has been compromised, it can tell ICE kick them off the network, just like that. Okay, it can also have what we call TrustSec, where we can divide the network up into security groups, if you will. So rather than having all these massive access lists all over your enterprise and everything, you just assign them to a security group tag. If a bad guy does breach, they're stuck there. They can't go anywhere else without that security group tag, okay? And that's also how you can isolate when you've been breached. It can tell, boom, contain them right there so they can't go any further. And then third one that integrates with it is over on the right there is what we call Stealth Watch. That's where we have the remember I talked about how critical the flow is, being able to see the flow? This is based on Cisco's NetFlow, which is now evolving to a industry standard called IPFix. You may have heard of it. Yeah, okay. But NetFlow was invented, had nothing to do with security back when we first did it. It was just enabled to give you visibility into the traffic onto your network. It turns out, years later, it turns out to be one of the most powerful security tools we have. Stop and think about that. If I have a user contacting a server, it goes through this switch, it goes to this router, and this switch, and all the different network infrastructure it goes through to get there. Think of the power, the visibility of that. Okay, now you bring it up to a GUI where it's not just a bunch of NetFlow data that would make your head spin or hair fall out like mine, but it puts it into a nice GUI, into flows. But realistically, like I said, it's a baseline of your normal behavior, so you can detect anomalies. Guess what? Stealth Watch can also tell ICE, boom, kick them off the network. Okay, see how these integrations are all, if you have a bunch of separate point products, you're missing the power of your true story, because what our solution will do is your security posture will change according to your environment without any human interaction. Does that make sense? Just to give you an example, if you put a Linux server on your network, we will adjust your posture according to that, without any human interaction. Okay, so that's posture, or that's a very flexible. Do you have any
Yeah,
more on
real
that?
quick. Telos, sometime Google Telos log, and you get really peep into what these guys go through to really take apart security and threats. It's really fascinating, but enough to make your brain smoke. So, cloud email security, cloud web security, or ESA and WSA, are the top two threat vectors, and those are important whether you have on-prem email or whether you're doing cloud email, and there is a noticeable difference in the security efficacy, whether you're just relying on, say, Google or Office 365's email security, as opposed to what Cisco can add to that. Noticeable difference.
Okay, now, what do you do now? The defense overview. Where do you start? That's a whole lot of moving parts, and you think, my word, I didn't realize it would take all this to defend against something as common as ransomware. Oh, it comes in by email, right? Well, there's a whole lot of moving parts to defend against that. Okay, so the bottom line is there is no silver bullet. I've mentioned it to you before. It makes people a little bit comfortable when a vendor like Cisco comes up and says, we're telling you, we're not going to see everything right away. That makes people uncomfortable, right? How do you determine malware on day one? You might be the lucky person on the globe that received that malware for the first time, or that ransomware, okay? So, and if your rep one's like mine, probably will. But anyway, so the idea is you want to prevent it. Harden that perimeter, like I talked about, that ASA with firepower services, all that stuff right on the edge. Stop it at the systems before it gains command and control. Detect it when it's there. You have to be able to correlate the events. Like I say, they will set in there for very long periods of time before they start doing anything bad. Okay, that's just how malware and ransomware, all that works. Is once it gets in, it wants to sit still because it doesn't want to get noticed until then it starts rearing its ugly head because it made it through the perimeter. It's like, ooh, it thinks I'm a good file, okay, or something like that. So then the main thing is to be able to contain it. That's where I say that security posture adjusting for you without any human action, that is containment, meaning we see this, contain it. That doesn't mean you can always remediate it right away, automatically, but you can contain it, you can block it from going anywhere, and the smartest thing may be to go in and just re-image that PC. If you've got a good clean backup, whatever, this might be the easiest thing to do, okay? Then, and then incident response. You have to have some kind of an incident response plan. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. All right, so just to kind of get from the web and email attacks, you can see that first of all, the OpenDNS blocks the requests, and then your firewall will block any connections back out, okay? And then obviously the email security handles the phishing. Then when you get to the endpoint piece, AMP for endpoint there's just nothing out there that can compare to this product. It is absolutely an amazing product, very easy to deploy. Not only do we do this with network AMP, where we can do network file trajectory, where we can, let's say that ransomware comes into that PC and suddenly it doesn't do anything for about 2 months, let's say. When it starts doing the malicious activity and we detect it, we can tell you where it come into the network, what was the first host that was patient zero, as we like to call it. We can see every host that it's touched since it come into your network. We never stop tracking the host. It can morph, it can change names, it can do whatever it wants. We know it because we take a fingerprint of it when it comes in. It can change names 100 times, we still know it's that file. Okay? Take it a step further, now it goes to AMP on the endpoint. Now, if a file comes in, we know it's bad, of course we'll block it right away. If it's good or unknown, you let it in. AMP for endpoint will sit there and keep track of everything that file has done since it's come onto your endpoint. So suddenly, if you could go, if it starts doing bad things, then boom, the Talos determines it's bad, boom, it'll immediately quarantine. And you can go back and you can see everything that it's done since it was on your machine. What new files did it create? What processes did it spawn? Now think about that. It's unmatched visibility now to be able to go from patient zero to all the way down to it spawned this process on this PC. Okay, that's unmatched visibility. Okay, and then like say OpenDNS has a second chance at it when it goes to reach back out to the command control server. So now here's an example on detection and contain. A couple here. All right, so this machine down at the bottom there gets infected. All right, StealthWatch can detect. StealthWatch can detect just through the flow, and it can, like I mentioned earlier, it can push out to ICE, and ICE push out a containment policy. And then I mentioned earlier that TrustSec security group tag, it can't get through because the security group tags give you unmatched segmentation. Okay, so when the user connects to the network in a TrustSec environment, we literally alter the packet and put a security group tag in there. Doesn't affect anything, but we put it in there. And now, anywhere I go with this particular device around the globe, I connect to our global network, I'm in that security group tag. I get the same privileges. That's why I said you don't need mountains of access rules in your firewalls as a result of it, okay? But you can see it segments. When they get in, they can't go anywhere because that's the only place, a different security group, okay? Another example is, yeah, there it is. So ransomware contained and that system stays clean. Now, let's say that AMP, a file comes into my network. I don't know, I've never seen it before, so I send it up to our threat grid cloud, and threat grid analyzes it, comes back and says, hey, that's malicious. It sends out, literally sends out an update to every sensor around the globe, every endpoint that's running AMP globally, says that's a bad file. If they got it, you quarantine it, and if it's on a network and they don't have AMP for endpoint, you block it, okay? And so then, like I say, the firewall blocks any connections back out. So you can see how all of this stuff, by being from the same solution and being able to integrate like this, that's where the power of all this comes in. And the beautiful part is realistically, we're just getting what we consider getting started on the integrations. They're getting more and more powerful. It's amazing. We in our I'll give you just a quick example. In our web security, we have a feature that you can turn on where it enables what we call cognitive threat analytics. CTA sounds very smart. Well, it is. It doesn't block anything. It's just an unbelievable detection engine that runs in the cloud. We now have integrated that as our detections of malware by 30%. Took already what was the best in class and bumped it by 30% with that one single integration. And now Cognitive is CTA is starting to integrate with our other products. Okay? So now, what to do? I know we're about out of time. So The first 30 days. In the world of ransomware, we can't tell you enough. You have to have a solid backup plan. Even your critical data, if you're backing up daily, you might even want to up that. It's all going to depend on how critical your data is. Okay. But the bottom line is have a true backup plan. A lot of people let that slip. Ransomware has changed that. All right. A whole lot of headaches can go away by being able just to re-clean and restore. Okay. It's a lot better than dealing with the bad guy. Now, also, the quick deploy, like we mentioned, Cisco Umbrella, which is the OpenDNS part, and the AMP for endpoint. If you're going to start anywhere, start there. Okay. Now then you'll say even add AMP to email. That first section right there, we've now put together ransomware bundles for you. That's just a quick start bundle for ransomware for you. So you don't have to mainly NSI wouldn't have to piece part it all together, but that's the recommended place to get started if you don't have any of these security solutions in place. Okay. Then within 60 days now, this is where you're going to want to get yourself up to like the next generation firewall. Put a next generation firewall on the edge running firepower services. Then you get all of the network AMP and all the next generation IPS, all of that type of stuff. The next thing it shows, it puts Stealth Watch down here, but modern slides have actually kind of moved that up. Ideally, if you could move that up there, it would be better where you can actually start looking at that flow data, okay? But in a perfect world, we all know how it works. But at the end of the day, critically, you have to have some kind of an incident response. Do you guys know what you would do right now if ransomware hit you at work?
Go work somewhere else.
Do you really have a plan? Okay. What do you think it's going to be like is on that day it's working and you call Jason here and say, help? Is that really, think about what that's going to do to your business. And just to kind of amplify a little bit, imagine like, you've heard the stories about airlines, how many millions of dollars per hour, retail, how many millions of dollars per hour, can you imagine? Think about what that's going to do to your business, okay? If you don't have some kind of incident response plan.
Reputation.
Mm-hmm.
Your reputation. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, don't forget about the social side of all this, okay? Nope. These companies that's got their names on that breach list, they wish they weren't there, trust me. There's people will do business with people that, because they're not on the breach list. Okay, so think about that. So then the last one is the detect and contain. This is where you start looking at your overall infrastructure, and that's why originally they kind of put Stealth Watch. What that means is make sure that when you are doing your refresh, make sure you're putting these Cisco routers and switches, stuff that are NetFlow capable type switches. Now, if they're not NetFlow capable, there's ways that we can design around it. But realistically, take all of that into consideration, okay, is to when you start building out your infrastructure, okay? You want, there's a term that we use, it's called AMP everywhere. You should have AMP in every threat vector, web, email, network threat. We put it on everything, our firewalls. You're going to continue to see anything we can put AMP on, we're going to put AMP on, because I don't care if you have 90% of your threat vectors covered, they're going to come in that one. Okay, so keep that in mind. There's a lot to this solution, and the fact that you can go to a single partner, you can go to a single vendor and have a solution that will work together. That's a very powerful story. We'll simplify all of this for you. Okay. Anything you want to add, Jason?
No, what he said.
Okay. And with that, I'm all done. I'm open to any questions if you guys have any questions.
Other than how expensive is it?
How expensive is it?
It depends on how many
Depends
of
on
these
what you
things
buy.
are right.
So I will kind of, in summary, say, kudos to Tim, because it's very difficult to boil this all down into a 45-minute presentation. So if you want to know more about this, Network Solutions can help you. To really explain, security doesn't need to be that complex and that mysterious. There really is an explanation of what goes on, what it mitigates, and what it addresses. So
But I would tell you as a minimum, try to get the
Yes.
quick, that, at least that will,
Sure.
that will help you immensely. And that's not that costly. Okay. Any questions?
There are proof of value, proof of concepts for nearly all of these products.
Yes, go ahead.
Learned service providers like E&A. Do you have any large customers that use some of these products who offer their services to others?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. The matter of fact, there's several of them, and we are moving into it's really rapidly rolling out right now into more of a service provider licensing model to make that easier for you, so that, like, say for example, you want AMP, but you don't want to manage it. Well, then we're going to literally going to be able to do it on a usage thing, where like Network Solutions could sell it to you, and based on how many licenses that it is, then there's communication between us, and we can bill accordingly. It makes it easier on you, the customer. You see what I'm saying? So you can pick and choose what services you're comfortable. But honestly, more and more are going to exactly what you said. That, you know, we want the technology, but we don't want to have to deal with it. Can you manage it for us? And that's where smart guys like Jason come in.